Hey guys, this is Nick. I just wanted to make a video about SGC versus PSA versus BGS card grades. There seems to be like a lot of old information, some new information, a lot of mixed information going on out there between the difference between SGC, PSA, and BGS. So I actually wanted to go over some cards and see if the old adage is true. You know, PSA over everything. I think now in this time, this quarantine, that you've seen some rise in SGC stock, as well as with Gary Vee saying that it's totally undervalued. And for my personal opinion, I kind of agree with that. And I'm going to go over some card prices for Juan Soto here, just to see the pricing difference between SGC, PSA, and BGS. So right off the bat, I have the SGC 10s coming up right now, and as you can see, let's go look at Juan Soto's US Topps Chrome update. So SGC has a grade higher than 10, is their Gem Mint 10 Pristine, or their gold label, as some people call it. And as you can see, these are going for around 240, 230, whatever the best offer accepted was. I know there's websites out there that you can find it, but their base 10 is going for around $100, with this pretty on par with PSA 10s. PSA 10s are going for around 150, and I'll get to that in a second. And as you can see here, April 4th actually sold for 249. Again, around $100 for the regular 10s. This is March 15th. The gold label actually sold for 109, but then March 5th sold for probably somewhere above 200. And again, this is March 1st, around $50 for the SGC. And as you can see, as the months go on and time goes on, these card prices tend to go up a lot more. And I just think that's one, the quarantine. No one can submit to PSA right now. I know they just recently opened up, but SGC has been open for pretty much the whole time. And so with the quick turnaround and the cheap card pricing, you don't have to go through a group or a secondary person. It's $10 to get your card price, or to get your card graded, and it's within a 30-day turnaround. So I think you're going to start seeing this trend upwards. Here's compared to PSA 10. As you can see, 150 for the Topps Chrome. This is I believe this one's a refractor though. Here's a non-refractor one. Topps Chrome update for Juan Soto's base rookie card, around $150. This one went for 73. This was April 17th. That's a pink refractor. Again, this one's another refractor, but a 180. Here's another base, around $140. So you can see the PSA 10s a little outprice it with the base SGC 10, but with the gold SGC 10, the gold label, it's $100 more, around $100 more than what you would get for a regular PSA 10. And since there's no grade above PSA 10, you know, SGC does bring a little bit more value in that regard. And I know a lot of people say, well, if you don't go with PSA, you're leaving money on the table, and that's just simply not the case. And as we go along here to the BGS 9.5s, these are, everyone's saying they're similar to the PSA 10s. This would be pretty much a normal PSA 10, but since it's graded 9.5, I have seen that there's a little bit of a dip. They're usually around $90 to $98, as you can see here for the base ones. But as we go up higher, you know, 77, 50, and that's raw. This one's around $80 or $70, probably what it's sold for. This one's 56, you know. But as we go along, when you get to the 10s, especially for BGS, it's like 350. Let's see if we can find another base one. This one's obviously a kind of a refractor. 10. This one's way over 489. I don't even know what that's sold for, but 300. I went through this last night, and they're going for about $300 for the BGS 10s, which is pretty much double of what you would find an average PSA 10. I don't have the pricing for the BGS 10 Pristine, just because those are just so astronomically higher. Almost every time they're always over $1,000, almost $2,000 for anything labeled BGS 10 Pristine, the black label. But as you can see, Juan Soto's PSA 10 is going for around 150. The SGC base 10 is going for about 100. Its 10 gold label is going for around 250, and the BGS 9.5 around 98 bucks, but the BGS 10s are going for 300. I just wanted to go through this with this card just because this card is obviously a high value card. There's a lot of cards of these on the market, and gives you a better idea of how these cards compare with one grading company to the next. So there isn't really too much of a difference. I think as time goes on, SGC will eventually, their base 10s will get up to the same price as PSA, and some have, like one or two probably have sold at that price, but their gold label is almost $100 more. And then obviously with BGS 10, it's double the price of a PSA 10. Now I know there's a lot of people already saying, well, the odds of you getting a BGS 10, or what are the odds of getting an SGC gold label? Yeah, there is a big difference. You know, a lot of people like to crack, if they have a BGS 9.5 or something like that, they'll crack it open and then resubmit it to PSA just so they could get the 10, you know. But I wanted to also show this. I did it for basketball, and there's a lot less of these for basketball, SGC grading. There just isn't enough. I've seen maybe 5 or 10 cards graded. I have Ja Morant and Zion here. So the SGC 10 for Ja Morant, around $200 to $300. PSA 10, a solid 300. For the SGC 10, the Pristine, the gold label, there was only one. This is what I'm talking about. There's not enough of SGC out there for basketball. And I've looked at a couple basketball players. As you can see, I got Zion right here. But there's just not a lot of SGC graded cards for basketball. So it's hard to get accurate comps, and you'll see as we go along. BGS 10, 450. BGS 9.5, half of what a PSA 10 is. But here, SGC 9.5, there was one that was sold for $355, which makes 0 sense because the base are going for $200 to $300. And the SGC 10 gold label, there was only one comp, and that was at $200. So that's why I have asterisks right here. PSA 9 going for around 95 to $100. The SGC 9.5, like I said, there wasn't enough here for me to give an accurate comps on it. There's just one that was sold at $355. But as I switch over to Zion here, the SGC 10, $350. The PSA 10, $750. The SGC gold, $500. Obviously BGS 10, $1,200. 9.5, $315. SGC 9.5, $190. PSA 9, $190. And this is similar to what I found with other cards, baseball cards included. Mostly baseball cards, obviously, because there's not enough comps for basketball. But it's either SGC is either on par with their 9.5s compared to PSA 9, or selling for a little bit more. Not a whole lot more, maybe like $20, $30 more, or $50 more. But it's usually around the same price, the 9.5s versus the 9. Now again, there wasn't a whole lot of comps for SGC 10 or even the Pristine. I think there was more. There was like 3 for the Pristine. I think I found like 3 for at the base 10s. But for the most part, this is what I found. There's a little bit more of a variance here, bigger variance. I think it's because Zion's so big, and there were so few of these that were sold. And obviously, I could barely find any for Tatis. That's why this is blank. But I think the main reason for this, and I have this tab open right here, is for this. This is Zion's silver base rookie card. This is his, what is that called? The parallel. And this is the thing. If you look right here, I've seen this. If you start looking up SGC cards, you'll see this on some higher end cards, or even some base cards where they're selling more accurately to PSA 10. Is that you'll see SGC 10 comp to PSA 10. And you'll see that on these cards that sell for similar or above what PSA 10 will sell for. And this is the biggest thing I think that people need to understand, is that there's just not a lot of education on what SGC is. There's a lot of old information and a lot of new people coming in soaking up that old information. SGC versus PSA, and all that old information is out there. It's like PSA or nothing else. You're leaving money on the table if you're going with PSA, or if you're not going with PSA and you pick something as SGC. What are the odds if you go get a BGS 10 or a BGS 10 pristine? You hear all that same stuff over and over again, and you hear it so much now, especially because there's so many new people who've come into the market asking questions, want to learn how, whatnot. And I think this is the biggest reason that SGC is a little bit undervalued, is because there's just not a lot of people who know about SGC, two, have done the research on it, and all the research they've done, everyone's saying PSA or nothing. PSA or you're leaving money on the table, and that's just simply not the case anymore. Yeah, there is, with these basketball cards, there is a bigger variance than there is on the baseball cards. It's almost half the price from a PSA 10 from a base BGS, and you're about $250 off, which is I think about like 35% off of with the design cards from the SGC 10 pristine versus the PSA 10. But if you look at the Juan Soto's, the SGC 10 SGC 10 gold label is $100 more, 80 to $100, and you're only giving up $50, with the base SGC 10 versus the PSA 10. And I think the biggest difference is if you actually just start labeling this comps to PSA 10 so that people know, you'll get an accurate comp to PSA 10, if not better, if you have the SGC gold label. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the education needs to be out there that, hey, there is more than PSA. No, you're not leaving money on the table. I mean, $413 right now for an SGC 10, a base SGC 10. That's probably comparable to a PSA 10. I mean, that's insane. That's almost half the price of what they're going for today, right now. And I mean, you could see PSA 10s are going for around $750, $800. Some of them have gotten past $800. I mean, if you're a long-term investor or someone who's holding cards for a little bit longer, I think SG10 is, way undervalued in some of these basketball cards. It's more of a closer race when it comes to baseball, but with basketball, you see these huge variances where it's almost 50%, 40% off. And it's just because, there's not enough information on SGC. But if you give out that information, I think if you even bought these SGC 10s and just relabeled them correctly, comps comparable to PSA 10, that you would get the same price as a PSA 10. And so I think this is a huge undervalue mostly for the basketball, because there's not a lot of information on it. And as more and more people start coming in, I think there will be a bigger pool of SGC, and you won't see this huge variance in card pricing, at least in regards to basketball. So just wanted to put this video out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and good luck trading.